Assuming everyone has had an opportunity to look at those, they are online. Are we prepared to put a motion forward for approval of the minutes?
Or a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Colohan. Are there any comments or revisions to the minutes? Seeing none, I would ask if we could approve the minutes by unanimous consent.
No objection.
I don't see any objections, so the minutes are approved. Brings us to our next item on the agenda, which is discussion of the application by Cubtech. I will turn it over to Rena Bacalar to give us an update of where we are and where we've come since our last meeting, and then discussion will ensue of the application before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank Gia. Those weren't minutes, G, they were hours, so you did a great job on the minutes. I know it was a tough task because there's a lot of details, so thank you. After, you'll remember that we concluded our last meeting with an opportunity to offer them what we thought was a compromise. We offered a 5-year fix on the assessment and then a 10-year graduated scenario. I scheduled a meeting the next day to go visit and to go over it in person. And I think I'm fair in saying that they were surprised that, that there wasn't at what we offered. I think that they felt strongly that they needed to come back with something other than what we offered. So they put, some thought into several scenarios. So they have pitched a 20-year scenario, which is a 10-year freeze and a 10-year graduated scale, right? And then they pitched a 15-year freeze period. And they did lay out the math on what we offered, on what the 15-year that fix and the 20-year with 10-year fix and 10-year graduated scale would look like, based on a basic rationale. We don't know what the taxes and the exact growth of the taxes would be. So they took an estimate that there'd be a 3% growth over the 20 years, let's say, would be inclusive of your mill rate going up, your value going up, things like that. Is it overblown? We don't know. Is it under, I think it's pretty, I think it's a little bit, probably more than would actually happen on such a property. But nevertheless, you had to land somewhere in order to sort of come up with what this would look like and give people an opportunity to think through the total value of it. So they have presented that. The other thing that they have presented is a comparison with their deal in Stratford. And their deal in Stratford is for a smaller property. We discussed that at length in our last meeting. I'm not going to get back into it, but it is not going to offer a long-term solution. It'll offer a mid-term solution. But in any event, if you look at the nut, so to speak, of moving to Trumbull to this property, which is much more like a campus, 110,000 plus square feet of property, it is a much bigger investment on their part over time. And I think they've laid that out. They've also laid out what Stratford's tax abatement offer is, and that's based on, a totally different building. But they have told me, and I know for sure, and I think I confirmed this with you, Carl, that Stratford is aware now that they are looking to move, and that they have said to them, what else can we do, to get you to stay in Stratford. So they're very, to my understanding, they're very excited about coming to Trumbull. I think that they just want some help doing it, and I think they need some help doing it. It's about a $10 million, give or take, difference over time from what they've presented to us. So that's what I have. They've generally been very positive, barring that first initial 10 minutes of our meeting when I arrived that next day after our last meeting. So they've been very positive. They've invited Carl and Jason to visit. They've invited the whole committee to visit if you want to go. Carl and Jason are going Monday, the 28th, between 3 and 4. If anyone else wants to go, it's an open invitation. You can go to that same slot. So we can send you the calendar invite if you're interested. Please let Gia know. And she and I think I issued the invite, but we can forward you the invite, okay? At this point, I think they need to go through their whole thing, but if I'll turn it back to you, Jason, for, where you want to go from here.
You're muted, Jason.
I think one of my questions is where they're coming up with their cumulative capital investment numbers. My understanding from the original proposal is that they were kind of front loading the, $3 to $5 million investment. But over 20 years, it looks like they're going to be investing $8 million or more. And I'm just curious what's contemplated there.
So we had that discussion, and I think they can further clarify. To get them into the building, they have to spend between 3 and 5 million to really fit out everything they want to do over time. If you look at 110,000 square feet and you take a basic, and maybe Mike Colohan can help me with this, but a basic calculation square footage for remodeling, I mean, what would you say, Mike, is a basic $75, even if they were doing something cheap?
Probably even a little bit more than that.
Yeah, 100, but let's just give it that's at $75 a square foot to renovate the space. It's 8,250,000. Now that's cheap to renovate in this, but I'm just saying they may not have to do everything. They're going to do it over time. So, I mean, the building needs quite a bit. So I think that what they're going to concentrate on is initially in the short, in the immediate and midterm, what they need, but over the period of time, they're going to, rehab the whole building.
Well, so to state it another way, is the cumulative investment, initial fit up or retrofitting and then normal maintenance after that? That, it's going to aggregate to $8 million over 20
No,
years.
they list maintenance, I think, separately, but remember when they first applied, so this is where this gets a little confusing. That was a 7-year plan when they first applied, or an 8-year plan, excuse me. Because that's the program that we had at the time. So they applied under the category A in our ordinance, which was 7 to 8 years that they showed that over based on their investment. Going to 20 years, their investment looks different, right, over the 20 years. So I think that's what they're accounting for. And candidly, I think it's low.
Okay, Mr. Massaro? You're muted. Carl?
You're muted.
Muted. Still muted.
I'm sorry, through the chair to Rena, please. So we got 2 counter proposals from them. My question is, what was our counter to their our initial 20-year freeze?
Yes, so if you look at the layout, they scoped that out. So ours was a 15-year offer. The first 5 years, it would be fixed, the assessment. And then we were taking that next 10 years and going 90, 80, 70, So if you look at their, let me just see which form it is. There's so many attachments, so you have to just bear with me.
It's the first page where it says proposed, or the
Yeah.
first tab. And really the second of the 3 charts on that first tab
Yeah,
is what you're looking at, where
right.
it was fixed at 100% for 5 years and then declining over the next 10.
Yeah, at the top, it lays out Exhibit 1. If you look for where it says Exhibit 1, 5-year assessment freeze plus 10-year freeze with a declining scale, that's what we offered them. And then each one is laid out with their counter. So then they go to Exhibit 2, which is their countering as a 15-year freeze across the board and what the value of that is. And then if you look at Exhibit 3, that's the 20-year counter proposal, 10-year freeze with a 10-year declining scale. And that's, again, assuming that there's a 3% growth each year, you know. And then they did a good job of showing what they're actually going to pay to in taxes, to remind folks that it's not like they're not paying taxes on the building. There's a tax payment that's being made to the town, you know.
So if I read this correctly, the difference between their two counter proposals to us, Exhibit 3, the 10-year freeze, and then a 10-year declining freeze yields a little more tax revenue to us.
Yes, that one, the total abatement would be 1.597 and change. So 1,597,000 and change, the value of that proposal versus the 15-year straight freeze. The value of that abatement would be approximately 1.9 million. So the scenario 3 or Exhibit 3 is, you know, significantly more than we proposed, but less than their other proposal. And that's over 20 years that you would be abating somewhere close to 1.6 million. But then again, you'd also be, yeah, you're right, Carl. So you see what they'd be paying, right?
Yeah, that's the graphs are.
Scenario 3 is they're going to look at it as it costs them more. It costs them not $300,000 more over 20 years than scenario 2. That's
Right.
That's how they're looking at it.
Yeah, of course, they want the best scenario, so, but I think I encourage them to put forward, initially, they were going to put forward, I thought they ought to give the commission a few options, you know. So I think that the 20-year is something that helps them forecast longer, so there's value to that. That doesn't necessarily, you know, it may be the lower amount, but they can kind of keep themselves, you know, keep their taxes stabilized over 20 years. And if they're growing and borrowing and other things like that, I mean, that has value.
Are there any other questions or comments from committee members? What is the reaction to the 3 proposals?
You're asking the committee
I'm
members?
asking the committee members in general.
Okay. Well, you know, I guess the question I just asked, you know, was really based on determining which proposal would give us the most revenue over this abatement period. And the answer is the Exhibit 3, where it's a 20-year 20-year agreement with a freeze only for the first 10 years and then a sliding scale. I guess in my mind, there's a couple of factors, you know, you can say it one of two ways, you know, how much tax revenue will we get out of this? And how much are we giving up versus, you know, what are we not going to get? What are we forbearing? And just the precedent of 20 years of an agreement, which is way beyond what we did previously, and freezing for in my mind for a lesser period of time than the 15 years. So I guess I'm saying that the 20-year term with only a 10-year freeze is the better deal to us, unless you don't like the idea of a 20-year agreement. which I don't love, but
And
Go ahead,
through the
Rena.
chair, if I could, I think that one of the things that's important is that we have to be mindful that we're protecting the asset from decline. So not only are they paying taxes, and I guess after the 10-year, they'll start paying more, but I think it's an asset in decline, and I don't see, looking out 5 years or so, I don't see that there's gonna be some big turnaround with these kinds of buildings in the, anytime soon.
can
Or
I,
corporate parks, by the way. They're kind of suburban corporate parks are not sexy places to be, so we have to make it a sexy place to be. They're part of that equation. But I mean, so there's
can I
the
ask another
singular base.
question, similar to the one I asked last time we met? Not being at the negotiating table, I don't have a sense or a feeling for, where else we could go. So I would ask you, could we do something like a 10-year freeze and then a 5-year phase in as opposed to going out for 20 years? It's kind of a little bit of a flip-flop from what you offered initially, which was a 5-year freeze and then a 10-year phase in.
I think this committee has to really offer what they feel comfortable with. I was taken aback at their reaction to what we proposed. So I think maybe that's a conversation with the applicant too. After, or maybe we could revisit that conversation after hearing from them. I mean, there's a lot of these office buildings all over the state. They can go anywhere. Eventually they start looking. There's all kinds of deals to be had out there. They found this, they like it, they like the campus. But, I'm sure that if word was out that they were looking, people would be throwing incentives around. So is it worth, I think that we'd have to run the math, Carl, on what that is. My guess is it's gonna land somewhere between what we offered them in the 20-year deal, it's gonna be in there somewhere. So, I mean,
What is the magic number of 20? I mean, what is, aside from just giving them the greatest possible runway, is there some magic to asking for a 20-year deal? Because it is very much outside of the norm.
it's not outside of the norm in the state. Absolutely not. I mean, I've been doing this a while, so the Steel Point deal was a 20-year tax deal. There's all kinds of deals around that are 20-year deals.
Yeah, but
We
this
don't-
isn't Steel Point.
I understand that, but it's just a local example. And in the state just changed the statute, so they changed it for a reason that towns are looking to have more leeway, and do things over a longer time because there's a lot of declining assets, so they're trying to get people in. I don't have a feeling one way or another whether it should be 20 years or 15 years. I just want to get them here. So if it's 15 and they're willing to, like Carl said, if we come in with another scenario, I mean, we have to just decide what we want to offer and see what they say. I mean, again, they're putting out a lot of money to make this move here. This is not cheap. Especially when they own their other real estate already. And they've got Stratford asking them what they can do to keep them there.
So do we want to ask them for numbers on a 10-year with a 5-year decline? Or I am cognizant, Rena, of not wanting to seem unwelcoming to them, but I do think we have to do our diligence on this stuff.
Yeah, like I said, it's up to the committee to offer what they want. I mean, that's not for me to tell you what to do. You have to offer what you feel comfortable with, and they're gonna yay or nay it. I think before we decide what we're offering them, we need to hear from them, and I think you need to ask them some questions again, and see if they shed any additional light. And I mean, if we're feeling that 20 years is too long and then the 15 straight fix is too much, I'd be candid and say, we're struggling to get comfortable. Dan has just joined us from Cuptech, but we're struggling to get comfortable with that, and we're gonna make a counter proposal in this neighborhood, and that's, I think we should be transparent about that. Hi, Dan.
Hello, everybody. Too soon?
No, it's okay. It's 7:27. Were your ears ringing?
Maybe. Yeah, I just
Well-
got back from a walk. Usually, take a walk with my wife before before dinner.
That's nice.
Are we expecting anyone else from Cuptech, Dan?
Yeah, I believe Vikram said he will be joining as well. I checked with him earlier.
Okay. Do you want to wait until he joins, or do you want to kind of walk us through we have the proposals or the information you sent, and we were just kind of discussing them before you joined, but we'd love to hear from you and get your thoughts and sort of the thought process behind what you came up with.
Sure. I think, are we talking about
We're talking about the 15-year freeze and then the 10 and 10,
mhm.
the two counter proposals.
Yeah, let me
Came
find
back.
that presentation. Give me 1 minute. I think that was a PowerPoint that we sent, right? Not the application itself.
It was an Excel
It was
spreadsheet.
Excel
It was
file.
Excel? Okay. Second, let me find it.
Is he trying to find the stuff? We could have Gia share the screen. The stuff's all in the invite.
I think I have it.
Oh, you have it? It should all be in the invite.
Yes. May have found it. Let me just share it. Hmm. I think this is what you have.
Yep, that's it.
Okay. So what we did here is did basically a 20-year comparison. Obviously, we're in it for a long haul, right? So here are just illustrating option one, which was Stratford, and that would be that's our existing facility and building a new building. So the total cost here that's under buildings is reflective of the existing building where that we bought and then put the second floor and all the architectural design of the exterior of the building, plus the second building that would be across the street. So that's the roughly $8.7 million. And I think because both obviously the new building would be brand new, and the existing building that we're occupying right now, the work in it has been done recently. We don't anticipate too much of capital improvement into both of those buildings. And then we look at the 75 Mary Boulevard. So obviously it's larger square footage. For illustration, I put 100,000 just to be in even numbers here, but I think it's like 110 or 115 if I remember correctly.
Right.
So the the current, contract is calling out the building as 3.7 million. So that would be our purchase price of the building. And that building is, I would say, in severe condition. We've had some initial architectural quotes that we've gotten from a few places, including the architectural design. Obviously, we want it to look similarly representative of our brand. So I think some of you are coming in on the 28th to see our existing facility, so you could see some of the stuff that we do with the building, again, just to be representative of the brand. And so we anticipate that, over the 20-year period, we would be probably putting in somewhere around $8 million into that building. And that is inclusive of the initial investment that we've put into the application. And then over time, we need to build out the floors and update some of the heating and cooling units that are in that facility, as well as the exterior as well. I mean, there's a huge parking space there, and somewhat of a decent land size that would need landscaping, and again, just some design aspect to the exterior, not just the building itself, but even where the parking lot is. And so that, when we sort of took in all of these different quotes and put our heads together, our anticipated cost of improving that facility over 20 years is going to be roughly $8 million. And again, that is inclusive of the large initial investment to bring the exterior and the first floor and a half of that building to Uptech standard. Now, the building, obviously in this estimate, we're not including us putting in a solar panel, so we're just looking at it as is without any additional investment other than the capital improvements. We're estimating about 25% in efficiency factor in that building and running it from heating and cooling perspective in comparison to the two new buildings that we would have in Stratford. Of course, that's why I put a little asterisk there, that the plan would be to not only invest into the building, but also put in a solar panel on the roof. But excluding that for estimate purposes, it would be much more expensive to obviously run that building. And so, when we include all of that as a difference in total operating costs over the 20 years, it's roughly $8 million. Now, I put in the tax payments in both towns for both the two properties in Stratford as a comparison versus the 75 Merritt. This is inclusive of the initial proposal that you have. So over the 20 years, basically, we would pay $4.8 million versus 4.7 in Stratford. So that's a difference of 113,000. And so when we add all of that up together over the 20 years, basically it will cost us an additional $10 million to operate the 75 Merritt Boulevard. So this is the current state current proposals of both towns. I'll pause for a second. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. So our counter proposal, there's actually two options here. One option, basically we do a 15-year freeze, just freeze. And the second option is a 10-year freeze with a 10-year declining scale. So obviously, option one, which is a 15-year freeze, is effectively asking you to contribute a little bit more towards the building improvements So we go from, paying taxes to the tune of $4.8 million over the 20-year period to $3.8 million over that same 20-year period. And again, this is exclusive of capital improvements and appreciation of the building. So at some point, when we get off of the tax abatement, obviously this number skyrockets because of the appreciated value of the building and all the capital improvements that we would put into this building. So this is option one counter proposal. This is the 15-year flat freeze. And then option two counter proposal is we do a 10-year freeze with a 10-year declining scale. So over the 20-year period, that is effectively $4 million tax payment. So it's sort of in between the original proposal and the 15-year freeze. And again, this is effectively to be put against the difference in the capital improvements of the building. And again, you will see, I think, again, some of you, I think, are coming to see our facility. Is that right, Rena? Right, on the 28th?
Yes.
Yeah. So you'll see the type of improvements that we're talking about, and what we're trying to accomplish is, again, make a place or a home for ourselves where it's not just us or the employees or Cuptech in total, but also obviously with us building a 150-person auditorium there, where we would be hosting our customers, which are basically doctors and distributors, international distributors. That we don't, the current state of the building is just not conducive to that type of effective running of Cuptech business. So those are the two counter proposals that I think, obviously the one that we would want is a 15-year freeze, which gives us the lowest tax bill and contributes more towards the capital improvements. But I guess we would be okay with option two, which is a 10-year freeze and a 10-year declining scale. Vikram just messaged me saying that he's still on the call, running a little bit late. Oh, he says he's not going to join. Sorry about that. He's on the call. Trying to figure out. Apologize for that. We're trying to figure out this tariff thing, and we may, export some units pre-assembled to India to sell to Asian markets. So I know that he's dealing with some of the tariff implications.
There are tariff implications. I hadn't heard anything about tariffs. Tell me more.
Well, we export and we sell to Asian markets, and so we're been working last week. We had a few nights where we're on the call with some of our international distributors to try to figure it out, if we can basically export a kit to India, where we have a small office and have it assembled there to avoid larger tariffs, basically, for Asian markets. I think we're okay with Europe for now.
It's an interesting time, to say the least.
It is a very interesting time.
And
third,
I
yeah,
just
sorry.
wanted to, first of all, say thank you for preparing the two proposals. And in doing our diligence, the committee was hoping that we could impose upon you to run a third scenario,
Okay.
which would be the 10-year freeze with a 5-year declining option at the end. So, and running that over the 20-year period too. And it's not that we are, in favor of one or the other, but we would just like to see, for comparison purposes, what that would look like.
Okay.
When we have to kind of, propose this to the town as a whole and see what that yields in terms of tax revenue versus savings to you, and perhaps I'm sure it's going to fall somewhere in between the first two items, but we would like to see how that looks.
Okay. Yeah, that's totally fine. Yeah, I can have that to you tomorrow. The only other thing that I guess I wanted to note, that because the building is a little bit more than twice the size and again, the tax abatement that I had listed here for town of Stratford, we didn't really push back because as we got the abatement, we also uh, were approached about this 75 Merit building, and there were a few other options on the table, and so we didn't really pursue it in a similar way that we're talking with you at the moment. And so, it sort of stayed at whatever the current abatement proposal is with Town of Stratford. And so you can see in its current form, it's almost the same with you, even though the building is twice the size. Obviously, as we get to option one and option two, I think it's more commensurate with the square footage. So I guess you can look at it a couple of different ways. And I think, sort of in my head, I was thinking that, okay, well, if it's twice the size or a little bit more than twice the size, theoretically, we should have more abatement commensurate with its size.
It's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Mr. Chairman, can I just, say and just candidly, I think it's important to run the third scenario for two reasons. The 10-year freeze with the 5-year declining, and I know we kind of discussed something like that when I was over at your office, and Vikram pushed back on that. Not quite this, but I was suggesting a 5-year freeze with a 10-year. We offered a 5-year freeze with a 10-year declining. And so then I had suggested the 10-year freeze with the 5-year declining, and he was resistant at that time. He was concerned. But one of the things I mentioned then, and I just want to mention it now, two things I should say. This one, whatever we recommend has to pass the town council. So while Carl and Michael and Jason are on the town council, there's lots of other folks on that. So we have to make sure that we're putting something forward that people feel is a good deal for you, yes, and a good deal for the town, and it's a win-win. And then the other thing that's sort of the big elephant in the room is we rarely do tax abatements, and we've never done one for 20 years, and it scares people, and it makes people feel somewhat uncomfortable, I guess would be the word that I want to use. So 15 is still a lot of years beyond what we've done here. The longest I think we've ever done was 10, if unless somebody knows. So I think that, getting there, and I can certainly talk to Vikram too, if you wanted me to, Dan, but it'd be great to look at those numbers, as soon as we can.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, I think looking at it from many different angles, I just think that, the way we care about our brand and areas that we occupy, I think we would be an amazing fit, for that ecosystem there. And I think the economic benefits that we would bring would definitely surpass the tax abatement. And then to me, I think as we get to the end of that tax abatement, I think what the town gets is, building that is now no longer in declining condition is worth a lot more than it is in its current condition. So, and we would be obviously fully occupying it without subleasing it, because our plans is to basically keep growing and expand 2 other product assortments that are currently in R&D to the upper floors. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, I think just to follow on Rena's comments, speaking for myself, I don't think there's uneasiness about Cubtech or your application. The uneasiness, for lack of a better word, is about the precedent we may be creating by taking a big step in, going from, I've only recalled one tax abatement in the time that I've been on the council since 2015, and that was, as Rena said, 10 years. And now we're entertaining a 20-year, plan that, we do have to be cognizant of the precedent that we might be setting for other potential applicants.
Understood. Yeah, and I think, you know, this is where you have to strike the right balance. Um, you know, and I think when we get to sort of the last the final steps of this, I think we definitely need to bring in Vikram just to make sure that he's okay with, you know, whatever we're heading into.
Yeah.
But you know, I would say that from I don't know if it's convincing to the, you know, anybody who's at the town council. I think, you know, to me, I think the town of Trumbull would basically secure a significant Connecticut manufacturer where we could be theoretically looking outside of Connecticut, right? Where we have other offers, and we didn't even we sort of saw this building and we saw the you know, the opportunity here to kind of you know, continue staying in Connecticut and retain our workforce that's already here. But we theoretically do have an option of, you know, tasking, for example, CLA, who's our current audit firm. They have a consulting arm that would effectively go out to different states and do the shopping for different credits, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, I think, you know, the fact that you would be able to claim that the town of Trumbull effectively secured Cuptech and all of its, you know, powerful workforce, and all of its exporting to, you know, international exporting in Connecticut, I think is a huge win for Connecticut. And I think it would speak volumes, in my opinion, for town of Trumbull.
Thank you. Rena, I'm going to go back through the presentation materials, but do we have a one-sheeter on the economic benefits that would result from Cuptech's staying in Connecticut and Trumbull that would be helpful for the council members who are not following this committee as closely as others?
So I haven't drafted a one-sheeter on the economic benefits. I could do, you know, the job projections are in the application. I could do, you know, it's hard to know what the spin-off benefits of that are, but there are some calculations that we can kind of come up with. We used them, our consultant for the mall study helped us. So I just want to be clear, you know, we have what the tax revenue is that they would pay, right? And we have the jobs projections, you know, the visitorship that Dan is talking about. I mean, what is it that you want beyond that? I want to just make sure I'm meeting what you expect.
I want a sell piece that we're going to be asked by our council members, our fellow council members, why are we entertaining a long-term tax partnership agreement with this particular applicant? And I think it's incumbent upon us to say, other than getting a rehabbed building, which is great, and it is certainly improves our inventory, is that over the long term, the
Yeah.
economic benefits are gonna outweigh the loss, in quotation marks, of tax revenue
Yeah.
from keeping the assessment flat.
Yeah, I can definitely put that together because I think the tax stabilization is not to be understated as well, because you have a declining asset. Believe me, it's in foreclosure. And we have an asset that could go to things that are not even taxable. So, you know, yeah, I can do a bulleted sort of economic benefits and then, you know, other kind of spin-off benefits. I can do that.
Rita, you know, I'm going to share something that is, you know, confidential at the moment, but we did put together this when Dan from DCD was at our offices,
Mhm,
because we were, you know, trying to
mhm.
get, you know, some extra R&D, and especially, as you know, in Connecticut, the S corps don't qualify for R&D tax credits right now. It's only C
Right.
corps. So there's a lot of conversation that went around different things. So we, you know, I could share this particular slide with you that
Yeah, let me have that. I'm going to talk also from the tax stabilization, from the ecosystem development, and from the visitorship and spin-off economic benefit. I can put some of that together. I can even project the temporary jobs that associate with like just building out the space. There's a calculation I can do. So yeah, I hear what Jason, what you're asking me for, and yes, I will do that. I also have something we can share with the council, my notes, which you all have on just what the situation is in terms of you know, it's in you have a copy of my notes in the attached calendar invite.
Mr. Massaro, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I just want to refresh our memories on Comtech's timetable for your various dates in your agreement. I think we had talked about possibly getting the actual tax abatement agreement to the council meeting on April 5th.
Hmm.
Um,
You mean May 5th?
May 5th, Carl.
May 5th. Is that what I said? No?
You said April 5th.
April.
I'm so
That-
sorry.
That's
That would
okay.
be, that would be
Yeah, well,
good.
no, we discussed this on April 1st in
Mhm.
this committee's meeting, but May 5th was a council meeting date that I remember talking about that would fit with your schedule. Is there room past that if necessary?
Well, currently we're doing there were two conditions, right? It was one environmental and the other one was the abatement. So we do have to give him an answer. I believe we had 60 days from the time we signed, and time is escaping my head. I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I think we're down to maybe 5, maybe 6 weeks. So I don't know if that's enough time.
When you say you have a contingency in your purchase and sale agreement,
There is, yes.
if need be, would the seller be willing to extend the contingency by a week or two?
We would have to go back. Maybe there is something that Reno or somebody can provide to say, like, we need, the town needs maybe like an extra week or two, and we can ask Satrim to extend a little bit.
I mean, I'm happy to try to help negotiate, support that. I've done that along the way here, but there was some rocky points with this contract negotiation.
Yeah.
And this deal almost didn't come about in February, so I'm a little, if we could, I would hope that we could try to work something out. I hate to, I know people don't need special meetings and things like that, but if this had to go to a June meeting, let's say, and I think Cindy's still here, but and it got finalized at a June town council meeting, Carl, and it was like what do you call it, emergency legislation, it gets enacted. They're set in June, so if we couldn't make it in May, and this got settled in June, I think you're okay, Dan, because I think the closing, if I'm not mistaken, is July, the closing.
I thought it was June,
I
is
thought
what
it was
Satrim wanted.
July. I'm trying to, I'm looking, I thought I had
Because I didn't really compile the purchase agreements, or I
so,
try to stay away from that.
or
And
maybe they have
Vikram
to,
and
maybe
Preeti
you
worked
have
with
to
the
come
town.
up with an additional deposit and.
Okay. We can look back and respond. I'll let you know. Like I said, Vikram and Preeti were much closer to the purchase agreement than I was. So,
Attorney Shobik, you have your hand raised.
I do. I have a question. My recollection is that there's a condition in the contract with
Went
regard,
out.
what's that?
Oh, you froze for a second on mine.
There's a condition in the contract having to do with tenancies. Has that been resolved?
we sort of gave him it's not a hard stop. I think it's a soft stop. There was a lot of back and forth on that topic. So I think specifically their concern was for I think I don't know if they're a food distributor or
Caterer.
caterer. Yeah.
Caterer, yeah.
Yeah, I think their concern was around them. So to us, that was not so much of a hard stop, because I think there was a lot of back and forth on that topic. Again, forgive me, I was not as close to the contract as Preeti and Vikram were. So that's not a hard contingency though. I didn't think that it was.
Okay. And the other question I have is that the Sachem is not the owner of the property. So are we clear that Sachem is going to be able to take title to convey to you?
That's what they're working on right now. I think they're trying to clear the liens and some of the other things. And so whatever timeline that was specified in the agreement, I think all parties thought that that was enough to clear all of that up and for them to have the title. So maybe, you know, if it's maybe there's, you know, luckily it happens where they get, you know, a couple of weeks delay and we have a couple, you know, a few weeks delay here and it sort of works out, you know, for both parties. But you know, I suppose they could clear it up, you know, sometime in June and say like, okay, we're ready. Are you?
Yeah,
Cindy?
the contract was signed on March 26th. I'm just trying to see if it's
So it should be
60.
60 days. If I remember, it should be 60 days from that date. So that puts us
The end of May.
end of May. Yep.
Jason, if I may, you know, another idea is the council is voting on the budget on May 8th. So it would buy us a little bit more time with no committee meeting to worry about if Carl would be willing to add it to the budget vote meeting. Just a thought.
Yeah, if we can't, you know, come to a full agreement by the 5th, it's a couple of extra days there, it's possible, but we'd get into notice issues, but, well, you know, by the end of this week, we'll be putting the May 5th agenda together, so
Carl, does this
Um,
require a public
why I
hearing?
brought it up. Sorry,
Does this require a public hearing?
it's a good question. I have to go back and look at the ordinance. It might.
So that also brings up some notice issues, and I don't know if we want to. Well,
You could
We have to
notice
do
it
it, we
for,
have to do it.
you can notice it for both meetings.
okay. Is there anything further from the committee? Ask questions of Dan or Cubtech that we would like answered before we deliberate and discuss further amongst ourselves. Dan, do you have any
wanted to-
questions of us? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lynn.
Sorry, this is Lynn. I'm sorry if you already said this and I might have missed it, but how did you calculate the taxes or estimate the taxes again?
Did you
Or-
want to handle that, Dan? Or do you want to?
Yeah, for the town of Trumbull. Here, let me just share my screen really quick.
Yeah, just for Trumbull. I'm not worried about how you arrive for Stratford.
Mm-hmm. So we had the cards. I think Gia sent us the property card. So it started off with the current value, the 3.67 that's on the town card. You know, then we have our additions, the capital improvements. You know, there's the assessment level, which is I think it's 70% is what we're using here. And then I also used a 2.5% annual increase to the you know, all encompassing mill rate, assessment values and things like that. So one view here is what the property taxes would have been, and then the other view is it being frozen. I believe you have the full spreadsheet, right, with the multiple
Yeah.
tabs in it? Okay.
So Lynn, when I don't know if you were on yet when I was discussing this, but it's a projection, right? So the projection goes from the existing taxes, looking at investment and regular that would up the, you know, value over time, and then just regular tax increases and, you know, vet revals and things like that. So it's using the, and they have to project what the growth would be. It's hard to know what growth would be today, but you have to use some
Mhm.
kind of a logic around it, right? That encompasses your improvements, your revals, your regular tax increases, that kind of thing. So I think it's probably a little bit overstated, but better that than short, you know?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Anything further? Dan, do you have any questions for the committee? Anything we can answer for you?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your time. Obviously, thank you for the consideration. And we're just looking forward to making it work. I think we're very excited about the space, and we hope that we can get all these different parties, together to kind of sort of, aligning the stars together and make a move at some point in the summer and start expanding. I mean, at the end of the day, for us, it's a growth game, right? So we need the space to grow, whether it's here or somewhere else. I think that's the key for us. So with that end goal in mind, I hope this works. And again, I appreciate all of your time.
Well, on behalf of the committee, we feel likewise, and I'm confident that we'll find a way to make it work, or a middle ground if we can't, reach agreement on one of the two proposals. So if you could, just a reminder, send us that third scenario, and then we will take that under advisement and hopefully move the process forward.
Thank you. Appreciate all your help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, committee members, thoughts? Don't all speak at once?
Yeah, if I may ask Lynn, from our assessor's office, I'm looking at an $8 million capital improvement, which is their number. So let me just assume that that's a fair market value. I think that's probably what Dan would have said if I asked him. We would be assessing that at 70%, right, Lynn?
Yeah, 70%, but if you're fixing the assessment, it would be on the 3,691,1. So 70% of that.
Well, at the end of the abatement period, yeah, I mean,
You're saying
let's say at the end of 15 or 20
assuming the
years,
value is
that $8 million
11.
value might be higher,
right.
but assuming it's just 8 million, 70% of that is 5.6 million. How
Correct.
much tax would that generate?
Well, assuming, I mean, roughly our current mill rate of 35 would be 196,000.
Mhm. Okay, and some of that would have been phasing in by the end of the 15 or 20-year period.
Right.
Um,
Mhm.
I'm trying to back into some numbers of how much tax we're giving up, so to speak. Obviously, that those improvements don't exist today. They're not going to be there overnight for 15 or 20 years. I think it'll, the last meeting, there was a suggestion that by the end of December, they were going to do, some improvements, 3 million worth for the HVAC and things of that nature.
Right, and you don't know what periodicity they're making those improvements. So if at the end of 20 years, they could be effectively 10 years old at that point. So that value would even be less. So if that was, let's say, you're basically your replacement cost new, then you have your depreciation you're reflecting in. So that building wouldn't be valued on an income approach. It would be valued on cost approach.
Wouldn't you use multiple approaches, Lynn?
You can
That's
ultimately
usually
to
like in a
arrive at that,
reval. In a reval.
but you would probably
What?
you can, and I mean, because right, you could use 3 different approaches to value, and it would probably end up being up some kind of a modified. They're supposed to all be fairly, if you do it correctly, they're supposed to be all fairly comparable. But ultimately, I mean, if that building isn't being utilized to, they're not leasing, they're owning it. It's an owner occupied facility. You would either look at other sales of similar buildings, or you would use a cost approach, or you could use a combination thereof. Ultimately, you could also base other sales as well. Like you could base it on like other buildings that have tenants, and you should come up to a relatively close value. But ultimately, I'm just saying that building, when you're looking at it, most likely it's going to be some kind of form of either the sales approach or it's going to be the cost approach.
If you look at the history of that building's value, I believe it was valued over 10 million. What?
Yeah, they've done some kind of form in the system, and historically, when I saw the last reval, they did it based on some kind of modified cost approach. There's, so there's different formulas that they put in the table. It wasn't a strict cost approach because typically when you use a cost approach, you use it on newer buildings, but you're not going to find most likely a lot of sales in Trumbull similar to this type of a building. So all I'm trying to say is that the improvements that they're making at that point will be aged by the end of the 20 years, assuming that they do them all up front early on. I mean, they're still going to be making improvements, hopefully, to maintain the building as it goes.
I think their projection is over time, they're going to invest, they're going to do an initial investment, and then they're going to invest to build out the rest of the building over time. But I think that one of the things, the problem is if that asset even just returned to its former value, okay, because it was remodeled, reoccupied, improved. I mean, they're putting in, like I said, like they were saying, they're going to put in a theater kind of setup for conferences, those kinds of things. They're going to also be installing things like laboratories, and that kind of stuff has, while it, any improvement depreciates, it still holds its value. Okay, it's not. It's part of what is looked at when you value a property. So if you have labs in the building, it's not like all of a sudden the labs have no value. Do you know what I mean? The lab is always of a significant value for that kind of a property. So they're going to be adding things like that. And so I think that I have no doubt that this building is going to gain significant value from where it is. It's deteriorated rapidly. And I think one thing that would be interesting to look at is where this was if you go back to say 2015, or when was the reval before that, 10, look at 10, 15, 20, 21, yeah, 21, and look at where this has gone. And there was a tax settlement, if I'm not mistaken, that I think Jim Nugent worked on, maybe, I could be wrong, but I thought there was either a tax settlement or something changed when it was sold. So, I mean, it's got a history, and most of the history is declining recently. So it needs, once you reinvest and reactivate, you're bringing a lot of value to the property.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that. I hope you don't interpret what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I mean, you have to reflect some depreciation into the building. So, I mean, I don't know what the condition's going to be at the end of 20 years. But I'm trying to say that maybe you don't be overzealous and go with the 8,050,000 as your value.
Right. So like a house, right? Your house can be older but still be worth, it can still appreciate, right? So your bill, if you keep it
Right.
up and if it's in a good neighborhood and if it's being occupied and so like your building similarly, except it's got all the other things you're talking about. So
Dan, before we go to you, Carl, was your question answered, or do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I think where I was coming from was, I think the town has to analyze some of these numbers. I don't really want to go to the council with an agreement and say, well, these numbers prepared by the applicant show that, we're abating these, 4,800 or $4.8 million. I'm sorry, those are tax payments, net of assessment. Let me say it a different way. If we're going to collect $4.8 million in taxes over this period, I'm looking at Exhibit 1, our offer that they've not accepted. The question begged is, well, what are we giving up? What are we not getting? And I
That's-
don't think we
that's-
know those numbers.
In that proposal, we're giving up 802,000.
Right.
yeah,
The abated amount is 802,000 over 15 years.
Right. We have those three numbers, but I think we need to review these calculations and see if we agree with them or not. So for instance, we have the current assessment. If we had revaluations, how much in taxes during the total freeze period would we not be collecting?
so it's
Their
very,
number is 802.
right.
I'm
But
asking
I
us to
helped them
do.
on this, and I'm going to tell you why, because it's very, and I think I'd be interested in the assessor running what they think the numbers, the projection forward of the tax growth would be. But I mean, we used a percentage to take in, because it's very hard to know what the market conditions, what the economy is going to be looking like, what commercial real estate's happening in 5, 10, 15 years. What's happening to values. It's very hard to know. But it's, if you look backwards at the kind of history Trumbull has with how much the taxes tend to increase over time, what the growth has been if a building is being invested in and blah, blah, blah. So that's where we came up with an estimate. But if there's a better way to estimate it that the assessor has, I'm all for that, but that's the rationale. It's to say, we just don't know what the value is going to be. We know it's declining now. We know they're going to add significant improvements. We know they're going to make the building go from empty to vibrant, right? So what are those improvements going to be valued at? What is that building going to be valued at over time? It's hard to know. What's our mill rate going to be? How much do the taxes go up? I mean,
All of that's understood, Rita, and I think to Carl's point, we would just like some independent or non-applicant prepared information to, that's kind of the one sheeter I was going for about there's going to be, tangible and intangible benefits and costs to this proposal. And if the benefits outweigh the cost, then it's something we can recommend to the town. Just need to understand what those are. So
now I'm
really-
confused because I feel like you're mixing two things. I felt like you were asking me what the economic benefits were.
I am.
Okay, so that's different than the tax projection, having an independent tax projection.
Well, I
And I
want to know
think-
both.
Well,
Well, I'm just clarifying because you tagged them together and I have to do one and Lynn has to do the other. I'm not opposed to Lynn doing it. I think our assessors should do their own projection. And see what they come up with.
I'm confident that a compelling argument can be made for some arrangement with this applicant. But knowing the council like we know the council, there are certain members that are going to want some data to support a vote.
Yeah. I'm sure Lynn can do a projection. They did it one way based on what I just told you. If she has another way to figure out what the projection over 15 or 20 years is going to be for growth, then she should put that forward with her rationale.
I can do that.
Great.
Jason?
Attorney Shopik.
Yeah, if I can, to follow up on that, the chances, in my humble opinion, chances are very good that the valuation with the next valuation of this property is going to go down, not up. So it is, all the things we've heard about the condition of the property. And if the owner at the time thinks that the property is overvalued, we're going to get another tax appeal. And, every tax appeal we've had has brought in lower values. The other thing is that it has been mentioned that, I know Rena has mentioned, that possibility exists of a not-for-profit coming in and buying the property. In which case you can take the income, the projected income, and drop it down to zero or near zero based on what else might be in the building. So I think that's something that's ought to be taken into consideration here.
Okay. Any other folks want to chime in or offer their thoughts?
If you and Carl are going up there next week, you may want to have some serious discussions with them.
I'm happy to have discussions. Rena's not going to be joining us, correct, on that? So, I'm somewhat loath to undo things that may have been long in the works between Rena and Vicky's office and the applicant. My understanding that this was a sort of a get to know your future neighbor kind of meeting, not necessarily a negotiation on the application itself. Carl?
Yeah,
your thoughts?
I would agree with Jason. I don't think I'm going to usurp Rena's long-standing relationship with Cubtech here and then the negotiation. I do have a question for Dan. In my heart of hearts, I'd love to have an abatement agreement on the agenda for the May 5th council meeting. I realize it's 2 weeks from tonight, and so my question to Dan is, the committee has to give you, the basic agreement, at least the basic abatement terms, but in terms of all the legalese, the ideas like, the applicant waiving future assessments during the freeze period, things like that. I mean, how long will it take for you and your office to put it together?
Well, I would say 2 weeks is a little bit aggressive, probably unrealistic. I think it's going to, 3 weeks or so. Assuming that this committee has direction to, is able to give us direction, then it can happen. I don't think, if it is going on the May 5th agenda and you're talking about a committee meeting next week, it certainly is not going to be in place for a committee meeting next week. It is next week. So.
Well, I'm not I'm not trying to overly fast track something, but we kind of targeted May 5th back on April 1st. If we're not there, we're not there. I was wondering if this committee could meet on the 28th I know we have council committee meetings that night as well. With the basic abatement schedule agreed upon. But that really depends on how all our committee members feel this evening with the counteroffers exhibits 2 and 3, and then there'll be exhibit 4 forthcoming tomorrow.
You
Yeah,
have,
maybe-
you have projections that you're asking from the assessor's office also. So I don't know, once we put all that together, I guess realistically, the schedule, I suppose we plug in whatever it is. But the terms of the agreement, maybe we can do a little bit more quickly, because those aren't going to change really.
Yeah, the agreement, if we got the whole bones of the agreement together, there's the previous agreement we could look at. I know some people here have had exposure to some of these, agreements in their own work, and maybe there's some language or whatever, but if we got the bones of it, then the actual section for the actual tax forgiveness is just, it's kind of like an insert.
The other question I have, Carl, is or Jason, the ordinance provides for no benefit to the applicant for permit fees, and I know that there's a request on their part for no permits, to waive permit fees. Is that right?
That's separate from this. Doesn't have anything to do with this committee.
Well, is it being done it's under of this particular ordinance, though, permit fees can't be waived, so you're using a different provision?
It's not it's not coming to this committee. It's
Okay.
going to the town council. And potentially, but it's a separate parallel track, separate
Okay.
thing.
I'll have to review that section in the ordinance to see if the council would be prohibited. I don't know. I gotta read it.
Do we want to take sort of a straw poll of the committee members of the 2 counter proposals, which and understanding the 3rd counter proposals will be forthcoming? Of the 2 that are on the table, do folks have strong feelings either way about the 15-year flat or the 10 and 10 proposal? Why don't we just
I
take
feel strongly about the 10 and 10. I mean, that kind of echoes what I was sharing in our last meeting.
Michael, your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess for me, what I'm kind of struggling, let's assume the not-for-profit, it doesn't buy it, and this deal falls apart. There's a very good chance this building sits vacant for 5-7 years. So really, you're only giving them an abatement for a few more years, and you're deferring. If this does sit vacant, you're deferring for, I don't know, $1.2 million to get paid. In my business, I don't like dead assets, right? This is a dead asset. You have the ability to make it a cash producing asset right now. You get paid back taxes, which I thought was somewhere around 300,000. I could be, but you're getting paid today, and you're really not deferring that much revenue, because I think you're going to sit and lose that much revenue. So, and that even adding that 5 more years, take it from 15 to 20. I think that 5 year, that savings you get the last 5 years, it doesn't justify the cost of money. I think the 10 and 10 is, before I even saw the numbers, I thought the 10 and 10 is the deal to make. It just makes sense for the town, and you're generating revenue right away. I just think, I mean, I don't mean to come off as a deal guy, but I'm a deal guy, and I think I would cut deal. I would generate cash, and I think that you got a lot of issues if they don't buy this building.
Well said. Thank you.
Rena, where do
Yeah.
you shake out on this? I'm having trouble understanding where you fall.
I shake out
I'm
exactly
kidding. I'm kidding.
where Michael would check out. He and I are on the same, we
You have no
understand
poker face, Rena. on
we
this
come
matter.
from the same business mindset, so he understands what he just said is how the development world, the project world looks at something like this, right? So he's dead on. And so, if they will go for the 15, let's see, I'm not opposed to trying to look at that. I understand we have to get this through the council. So I don't know enough about, there's a lot of people on the council I don't even know. So I don't even know what their mindset is, how they think about these things. Is it gonna scare them? I don't know. So I'm layering that sort of on top of this. So I said, let's come back. I'll take the temperature of what Vikram has to say tomorrow about a fourth proposal. Um, to try to, see what his mindset is. I think we're under a lot of pressure right now. I think they've got some other things they're dealing with, so.
Yeah, and again, I don't know that the numbers that are gonna come back on the 10 and 5 proposal are gonna change opinions markedly either way, but as I stated, knowing certain members of the council, they're gonna wanna know that we asked the question. And they're going to ask what we've considered before they're willing to make a decision. Fred, you had your mic unmuted for a second there.
Yeah, I agree with a lot with Michael said, and obviously Massimo. I really like the 20-year with the 10-year and the 10-year as well. I really think it's in the best interest of the opportunity to develop this property, and a win-win for the town and for the potential new purchaser.
Okay, Maria, your thoughts?
I'm still reviewing the data, like you were saying that you wanted some analysis done. I was trying to analyze the schedule they submitted. But yeah, I think the 10 and 10 is probably the best. I would still like to see the third scenario though.
Okay. Lynn, you have any, I see your number, I don't see your face, but do you have any thoughts on where you shake out?
I would agree with the 10 and 10. That's just my knee-jerk reaction to that one. But I definitely would think that was probably the better scenario. I just don't think that the amount of taxes they calculated is correct.
It may not be correct, but do you think they're off by factors, or is it just going to be,
I don't know. I have to do some. I just have to run the numbers, and then I'll let you know what I think it's probably more likely to be. But again, I agree with Rena that you would rather have an asset that's not wasting, and you're headed into a next revow. And if this is going into foreclosure, and someone else buys it, they're going to buy it, and they're going to appeal the assessment on it currently. Before the next reval, and then at the next reval, you're going to definitely be stuck with a lower value than what you have now. I'm just thinking in that terms. I don't think that there's any revenue loss. A revenue gain that you're getting from somebody else, you're going to be having revenue loss.
Thank you. Carl, I'll come back to you for the final word.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think we've accomplished our goal of having the applicant come off a 20-year freeze, which I think would have been a really hard sell. So thank you, Rena, for getting them down to a 10-year freeze. If it's at all possible that they do a 15-year deal with the first 10 years frozen and phased in over 5, then we succeed a little more. But obviously, the negotiation here has gone along the term of the abatement agreement, and it's become less about the tax dollars. And then Jason's right. There's people on the council who are not going to think, they may just revolt over the term. And they may not like the lack of revenue, but the fact of the matter is, we're not getting paid the revenue. We can get seemingly almost a guarantee that we will get the revenue over the abatement period, with the hope, and expectation of improvements and one day a much larger assessment and therefore more tax dollars. So I think we have the framework of a deal. It's either 10 and 10 or 10 and 5.
Yeah, I would agree. And, my 2 cents is if the 10 and 5 becomes, causes too much heartburn, that we don't let great, stand in the way of getting a good deal for the town of Trumbull.
Right. I agree.
And through the chair, I just want to make one comment about the tax projection. If anything, because the value growth on it that's projected on the, 3%, that's high, I'm sure, because we just don't know where it's going. So if anything, I think the value of the abatement is lower. I actually do. I think, but you have to land somewhere, like I said, to project it. We don't know what's, gonna happen. But we do know for certainty, if nothing happens, we're in big trouble, that building.
Okay, thank you.
Just to be clear, also, the building is in the foreclosure process. I know Lynn said it could go into, but it's already in that process.
No, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
aware of that, and
I just want to make sure Lynn knew that.
okay, so I think we've discussed sufficiently the application. I think we have a framework to move forward. So unless there's anything else, I will close discussion on that and ask if there's any new business before the committee.
Just the next meeting date?
Do we have a fixed, set Monday in the month, or are we just doing this ad hoc? I know that we had a little bit of a noticing issue last meeting, which was supposed to be on the 14th. So do we want to keep the second Monday or whatever that was? I'm open to suggestions here.
Well, listen, I'm a kind of an optimist. I still like to do something a week from tonight. If you get us feedback from Dan about the 10 and 15.
I'll circulate it tomorrow. He's said he would work on it tomorrow, and I usually work on it with him. So we'll work on it tomorrow, and I'll circulate that to the committee. I would like to see us move this along, because what makes me nervous is a month, 2 months, a lot can happen in the world and things, and deals can fall apart, and it's just like, I mean, we're used to bureaucracy where things stay the same for decades, but that's not how it is out in the world. And so I'm getting concerned that we're pushing this off. I think that it would be my request that we convene, if we get the thing tomorrow, let's just say we get it tomorrow. Can folks convene again this week? Later this week? I don't know what people's schedules are. There's a committee meeting on Monday, I think, and so we could meet maybe earlier on Monday or convene maybe Thursday of this week. What day is today? Monday? I'm forgetting what day. Is it Monday?
Yeah, today's Monday. You'd have to notice a Thursday meeting tomorrow.
Well, if this group was up for it, we could, I don't think that would be difficult.
I
I might have difficulty with a Thursday meeting,
Yeah, I was gonna say Thursday's tough for me, and I hate to propose a Friday meeting, given people's intruding on free time, but if we need to do Friday, can anyone do it?
Could people do it during the day? I don't know what people's schedule.
maybe.
How about 8 in the morning? Do people do that? I don't know.
Could do that.
Yeah, many of us work in the private sector, so yes, early morning meetings are okay, but let's just pick a time.
I'm in favor of 8.
Friday's not gonna work for me in the morning.
You do Thursday morning, if we noticed it tomorrow? Anyone?
I can do it.
I would just have a hard stop at 9.
I could do Thursday at
Thursday.
8.
So, wait, I'm sorry, are you saying this Thursday
Correct.
or next Thursday?
This
This
Thursday.
I can't. I won't be here.
Well, next Monday at 6:30.
I can do that.
Carl, you've got the
Committee meetings at 7.
Council, you've got a budget hearing at 6:30. Town clerk, vital statistics, sewers, and Tashua Knolls. And then the finance committee voting session at 7, and then regular committee after that.
Well, they can do what they do. We can do our own thing.
And
It's-
where should Maria be?
6 o'clock? I don't know.
What about Monday morning? Did we discuss that yet?
No,
I can do Monday.
we can do Monday morning.
That was 9 a.m. on Monday.
Sounds good here.
Works for me.
Okay,
Deal.
Okay.
So let it be written. 9 a.m. Monday.
All right.
Madam First
Are you
Selectman,
getting
you have your
biblical,
hand raised.
Jason? You-
Excuse
then
me?
are you out Monday?
Monday at 9
I
a.m.
am, but I will get on the call.
Thank you.
Um,
You're welcome.
a Zoom meeting, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we would just coordinate Jason, just an agenda similar to tonight, just like a continuation, right? So we'll get that out tomorrow in a Zoom meeting.
Yep. Vicky, you
I
have your
just-
hand raised? Do
Can I
you-
just point something else out? If you want to continue this meeting to any other day, you can do that.
Ah,
With no notice.
wait, this is interesting. Never heard that one before. So can they vote to continue it to Monday morning?
Could do that. Although you have time to notice it. I don't think it, but if you were trying to get it another day this week.
My concern is a perceived lack of transparency because folks aren't going to know. The public will. I'm assuming there's no public in this meeting, but to the extent the public would like to participate or view the proceedings, if we can notice it, we probably should just notice the meeting.
Oh, I definitely notice if you're doing Monday, you could definitely notice it.
Right, so 9 a.m. Monday.
Or Dan, are you saying that if we wanted to reconvene, say Wednesday, we could continue this meeting until Wednesday and
Correct.
then reconvene?
Correct.
But that might be too soon.
Well, assuming we get the information from Dan tomorrow and circulate it amongst the committee members, we could reconvene.
We just need
Before
Lynn. How
Monday.
long is it going to take you, Lynn, to do your calculation?
I could probably try to get it done by tomorrow. I was scheduled for a class Wednesday, but I can try to get it done tomorrow for you.
Maybe just go with Monday. This is getting,
Okay, then let's just go with Monday, 9 a.m. on Monday. That would be the 28th.
It works.
We'll have virtual coffee and donuts together. It'll be wonderful.
are you buying, Jason?
Sure, I'll use my virtual money.
Cryptocurrency.
Vicky, you had your hand raised. Do you have anything to add, or was that just a false hand raise?
No, it's all right. I'll catch up with Rena tomorrow. I was late. I'm sorry that I wasn't here on time, but I want to hear what that third scenario is. But I'll talk to Rena tomorrow about it.
Very briefly, it was just the 10-year freeze with a 5-year burn down, not a 10-year burn down.
That Carl just mentioned. Okay. Okay.
That was the sum total of the proposal.
Okay.
Okay, so we have established our next meeting, and that brings us to the end of our agenda. Is there anything further? And I would entertain
adjourned.
a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Massimo. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Aye.